Oh, I hope I didn't just mess up my whole microphone setup. I
I can
adjusted
hear you.
one thing. I adjusted one thing. I updated Stream Deck and something's going on with my microphone button.
Oh
Like,
no.
whoa, now I can't mute it.
I want to hear about your thing with James while we're.
Yeah, yeah. James was in town for his company, Big Commerce, or I guess now the parent company is called Commerce. They're having like some kind of conference or something over the next couple days, and so he had a little meetup down in the Domain, which is like a shopping area at a coffee shop. And I show up not expecting to know anybody, and lo and behold, Shashi's there,
Yeah,
and
thought he was going to be
another
there.
another buddy of mine, Jordan from Atlassian. And I walk in the door, I'm like, "What are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "What are you doing here?" So that was awesome.
Very fun.
Yeah, small crew, but like we all knew each other, which was great.
Yeah.
And then James had two other coworkers there with him, so I got to meet some
Okay.
folks from Big Commerce.
Nice. I miss talking to him. We need to have him back on.
Yeah, we do.
Do you just want to go? I have so many things I want to talk about, but I'm afraid the conversation's going to be good and it's not going to be part of the main show if we don't start.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Okay. Let me pull up the sound. I always have to search for it. I don't know why it's so hard. I don't even see it. Oh, there it is. Okay. It got hidden between crowd claps and crowd laughter. Okay, I found it. Sorry, everybody. Okay. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. In today's episode, we are talking shape up, shut down, shut down? Yeah. So I say shut up, shape up, shut down, and scale up.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compress.
Hello, my name is Amy Dutton. I am a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team.
Hey, y'all. My name is Brad Garapi. I am a senior software developer, whatever you want to call it, at Cloudflare.
Systems engineer.
We're getting less
All the
formal with these
things.
titles as time goes
Oh
on.
my goodness. Well, I tell you what was funny. I'll get your take on this in terms of titles. So I was at the bus stop the other day, and I'm not sure if it's me and a bunch of dads. I'm not sure if the other dads really know what I do. I think they probably think I'm more of a designer than a developer, which is fine.
Uh-huh.
But we were talking about AI, and I had made the comment that Microsoft came out with a list of jobs that were in trouble. And on the top list of jobs that are in trouble is web developer. And on the list of safe jobs is software engineer. And I was just making the comment of like, how can these two coexist? Because they're basically the same thing. It's kind of semantics. And then it was like one of the guys wanted to kind of mansplain to me the difference between software engineer and web developer. And I just kind of nodded and I'm like, this is what I do. So I just let it go.
Okay, I think there's no distinction between the two, but I feel like people tend to use them. If you got a degree in, uh, you know, engineering or software
Mhm.
engineering or from a university that has to do with computer programming, then you can call yourself a software engineer.
Mhm.
I think that is, in my head, why people use the different terms. And I know Wes Boss always says in Canada, it's like a real thing when you're an engineer, get an engineering degree, you get, the pinky
Oh.
ring because you're kind of like
Oh.
held liable for all these things, but it
Oh,
doesn't apply to
interesting.
software developers in Canada, apparently.
Huh.
But like, if you build a bridge and it falls over, you can be
Yeah.
liable for it. So
Oh, wow. Huh.
I don't know. At the end of the day, I think it's all the exact same thing. Maybe people call themselves web developers if you're just like modifying a WordPress theme or something, and maybe there's a difference between like
Yeah.
building software systems and theme
Well,
development or something like that.
I I wasn't, like, really offended, but I was maybe a little offended, and so I came inside and I asked ChatGPT. I was like, "Okay, what's the difference here
Okay.
between the 2?" And it was kind of what you were describing. It was like web developer could be more of like, no code, low code type people, which I can totally see AI replacing that, whereas it was saying software engineer is more concerned about larger architecture, which is like what I think about what you do when you're working for a big tech company and you have to keep the entire organization in mind as you're building these tools. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I can understand because like a AI bot cannot keep that entire context in its like quote brain versus like
Yeah.
just trying to build out a website, just, go to Framer and say, this is what I need. So I can see that. I think for me, when I say some of it's semantics, is when I am introducing myself at like a party or like at or a kids event. I'm there with my kids and somebody says, "What do you do?" And I'm like, they're not going to know. They're not going to get this. They're not going to understand. And so I'll just say, I'm a web designer and developer. But if I'm,
Yeah.
like, going for an interview, I'll be like, "I'm a software engineer. I'm a product
Yeah.
designer." Like, those terms translate a little bit easier and a little bit better.
Yes, I use the word engineer when I wanna, like, be super professional, but to everybody else, yeah, I build I build things on the internet or for the
Yeah.
internet is what I pretty much say, or make
Titles.
websites, that's, like,
Yeah.
common folk. Also, what kind of dads are at your bus stop? They're, like, super tech or what?
Some of them are more tech. One guy, I'm not exactly sure what he does. He works for a company that, like, tests chemicals. I need to look and see,
Mm,
but he's always like, "My job's going away." And he's like, "I have to learn AI." So he's always complaining about AI. Another guy's a salesman. There's another guy that works for Vanderbilt. I live outside Nashville. He works for the university and he's in tech, but I think he's more maybe Java geared.
gotcha.
We don't talk a lot about tech stuff, but he's back in, so he could at least understand what I'm saying. My next door neighbor actually is like in this weird, I'm trying to retire, but my company won't let me. He's not at the bus stop. He has older kids, but he's a Vue developer. And so a lot of times when we talk, it will, half mention JavaScript, but since I focus mostly on React, we don't have tons of technical conversations.
That's real like, my company won't let me, what does that mean? Like, they need me around, so they keep paying me more money, so I keep staying, or, like, what's the deal?
Yeah, so he's, like, tried to retire, and they're like I guess just the mind share that he has, the knowledge share, it's like, "We don't want you to leave because you understand things, we need your help." And so he puts in, like he has a I mean, he's living the dream right now where it's like he defines his own hours, he can kinda come and go as he wants, and they just, like, ask him for consulting advice on what they should do about stuff. I'm like, "That."
Right, like, as long as, like, he's there to kind of, yeah, oversee and
Yeah,
give his opinion, that's what matters.
right.
That is a great position to be in, not
No,
gonna lie.
it's well, and what's crazy is, like, he and his wife so his wife just retired from teaching, like, last year, I think. I think she was just done with it. I don't even think it was, like anyways, they're, like, going on cruises all the time. They they're like, "Yeah, we have 5 cruises between now and the end of the year." I'm like, "What?
Dang,
That's
dang.
amazing. Good for you. Good for you."
Smaller company, though, I take it probably?
I have no idea. They moved from California, so there really is no
Oh,
telling.
you never know. Yeah, I feel like the bigger companies, it's like, whatever, they can replace you.
Oh,
Smaller,
true.
you have more value, but who knows? Maybe he built a really important system at a big company, and he's the guy who it's all propped up against, you know?
Well, his boss, I think, has been his boss for, like, 15 or 20 years, which, again, this
Yeah,
is just, like, a different type of
yeah,
environment than what we've grown up in, and so he's worked with his boss that long. If he's his boss' right-hand man and his boss doesn't want him to leave,
yeah.
then I can understand trying to keep him around.
Makes
So,
sense, yeah,
I don't even know what type of company he works for, but there's a lot of tech people, tech-ish, tech-adjacent people.
yeah.
So let's see. Okay, so you just finished Shape Up. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I read it a while back and I have a few things that I remember thinking about the book, but I don't know. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, so Shape Up is that book from the folks who did Base Camp. Um, I think the book was geared towards smaller teams, right?
Yeah.
Typically on projects, they had anywhere from 1 to 3 developers on them, and to me, that says smaller teams. You're
Mhm.
building smaller features, the impact is less. Um, they work in 6-week cycles, which is very, very quick. They do, at the end of the book, talk about, like, how to apply this methodology to larger companies, but I found it to be much harder. You're not gonna get buy-in. So, what I did take out of the book, though, and what I thought was awesome was, um, all of, like, the shaping process and the betting process, I don't think applies, but what I loved was during the build process, there was this method of thinking about the work that you're doing. And I'm in, like, a beginning project stage right now at work, and I've been calling it mushy. Because like, things aren't
Mhm.
defined, products barely on board, the designers aren't really on board, engineers don't know what to build, everything's
Yeah.
mushy. And so, they had this notion of, like, um, unknown work and known work. And
Mhm.
instead of just being like, everything's in to do or, like, you're thinking about it, it's more like a hill where, like, the work is unknown and you're kind of, like, thinking about it and trying it, and then at a certain point, it becomes known, and you go, "I get it, I know the path forward, I know exactly
Mhm.
what I have to do," and then you can kind of, like, put a timeline on it, but until then,
Mhm.
it's really hard to, like, define. Um, and so, basically, all of your stories, all of your tasks are kind of, like, grouped into tiny features, tiny bits of work that need to get done, and that those bits of work are, like, either unknown or known, or they're somewhere on this bell curve. And what I took out of the book was, like, you can use the bell curve to show progress of all these things to coworkers or managers or whatever, and I think it's really, really clear. Like, we're way over here right now with this piece because we really don't know what's going on, and it makes it easy to visualize and for the manager to go, "Oh, what do you need help defining something? Who do you need to be in
Mhm.
the room with you? How can we get these people and resources together?" Versus like, "Oh, you're at the top of the bell curve. It should be smooth sailing from here on out. For this work, we can
Mhm.
expect it to be done in like a week or 2." That's what I took away from the book is like how to show progress in a way that makes a lot of sense across the different timelines of a project.
Yeah, that's good. I it's funny, I don't remember that part. Um, when we were under different leadership with Redwood, they would often talk about over the hill, going up the hill, and I guess
Yeah.
that's what they were referring to, but I never
Yeah.
quite made the connection between, like, what those to be honest, what those terms meant or what they were talking
Yeah.
about. The big thing that I remember with Shape Up, well, 2 things kind of, was how they talked about, like, shaping the work, like, actually trying to figure it out,
Right.
and the way that they did that was they would talk about the appetite for a project. So somebody would get excited about a project and write a brief and try and get other people on board, and then you would only do projects that you were really excited about because then you're gonna do some of your best work. So that's really interesting to me. But one of the things that I remember talking with other like, this was when I was at Zeal, so we were doing software consultancy. One of the things that we talked about was, like, the actual Basecamp products and how these concepts are being applied. And if I like Basecamp a lot, but there's also parts of their design system that are just, like, elementary to me that don't always, like, feel professional or don't feel like they're cohesive. And so this came up from a design perspective and how they're defining the work because it's like, well, if somebody's just going on and saying like, "This is what I'm excited about," and somebody else is saying, "This is what I'm excited about," like, where's the cohesion in their whole system and what they're creating? And so that was kind of the constructive feedback that we kinda discussed and talked about, like, how do you create the consistency through all that as you're defining the work and determining the direction. A lot of that I think falls on the product owner, the product manager to make sure that that stuff or I mean, even a designer just being aware of the entire system.
Yeah, right. I think because the teams are usually 1 designer and 2 developers, the designer should be bringing that to the table, just like the
Mhm.
developers are bringing their own expertise of like what existing functionality can we leverage to build this feature. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
you
the shaping
almost
process doesn't really talk about it. They have
yeah.
those ideas of like fat marker sketches where it's like
Yep.
we don't like the designer still needs freedom. We're just drawing boxes to indicate like things that we need on the screen, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I'm not trying to like create additional systems or processes, but you almost need some type of cross team functionality because you could even say, even if you have designers that are
Yeah.
trying to achieve consistency, if they're both working on projects simultaneously and not talking to each other, they could be moving in different directions. And that's not really helpful towards the product as a whole.
I mean, this probably assumes an existing, like, component library, style guide, et cetera. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So, anyways, just something to consider. And I think about that too with like Microsoft's systems. They have so many different products. And I haven't been in Outlook in a while, but I was doing work for a company that used Outlook. So I was forced to use it. And some of their UI just was not consistent even throughout the entire application. And I was talking to somebody and it's like, yeah, they have multiple teams working on that stuff. So, it would make sense that if one team is just focused on, say, the inbox and one team is just focused on the calendar. Like they should be talking so that those UI patterns are consistent. But you have issues where, like, yeah, the accept buttons at the top, but the okay buttons at the bottom, just weird things like that. That's like, it would be better if everybody was kind of working together. Or you had some kind of review of the product as a whole.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tough at
Hmm.
scale, right? You can all have the same
Yep.
component library, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have the same, like, information architecture or page
Hmm.
layout or anything like that.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, we're actually in a weird spot right now at Cloudflare where we have, like, some deprecated design systems and component libraries, and, like, we're trying to figure out which one we're gonna do the new one on,
Mm,
and we just, like, purchased another company that had a nice design system, and it just seems to be right now that, like, we're having trouble coming together as a company and saying, "This is what we're gonna do."
yeah.
It's all starting as, like, grassroots efforts of, like, what if team A and team B picked the same thing and then started using it? And it's like, well, you need bigger buy-in than just that, in my opinion.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know.
Yep.
It's a tough situation, I think.
Yeah. When I was at Zeal, I did stuff for it was a company called Freedom Financial. They've since then they've rebranded, but I was there when they were starting that whole rebrand process, and so they're a different name now. But that was really interesting to bring in a vice president of product and have them really drive the design. And they kind of built up the team. So I was there with one other designer, but then by the time I left, I was part of a team of like 20 or 30 people. And so that was kind of interesting to see them through that transition, but also bringing in the creative director. So you have somebody on the marketing team and trying to make sure that all that stuff works together. Like it really is an effort to make sure that you get cohesion across the board. And I mean, they were
Yeah.
dealing with 5 or 6 different products. And so, I mean, it's hard at scale.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so do you want to talk about shutting down a project?
Shutting down a project. Wait, hold on.
I was
Which
gonna say
which bullet which bullet point
shape
are
up,
you on?
shut down.
Shape
So
of
you're
shutdown.
talking about like this awkward phase between spinning down a project and starting
Yes.
one up.
Yes, it is weird. Okay, this stemmed from, like, wrapping up all the work I was doing on the side navigation at work. A project feels done, but there's this long tail of, like, feedback
Yes.
and changes and opinions that keep coming in once you release it to the world. And it's hard because, like, as soon as you deliver, resources just scatter, right? Like, people go on to the
Yeah.
next thing, and it just feels like this is kind of to just left unattended, kind of.
Mhm.
Nobody's buttoning it all up and putting a pin in it. Um, and that's tough because, like, once you move on to a new projects require a lot of, I feel like, thinking and exploration and, like, mind share and dedication. And it's really hard to jump back and forth between, like, the new project work where it's, like, a bunch of deep thought, and then old project work where it's, like, rapidly kind of just fixing bugs or
Mhm.
dealing with, like, customer input and things like that. And so, it's that downtime that well, it's not even downtime, it's like, how do you balance 2 things? How do you
Yeah.
know when a project is done, and when you can start on something else?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. It's like that 80/20 rule which I feel that in my own projects all the time. That's like I did 80% of the work and I'm at that point just kind of ready to be done with it. But it's that last 20% that's difficult, but probably requires 80% of the time trying to get it over the hump. And it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and, one of the things I think about a lot is, like, on so when you're starting a new project and it is mushy, how do you gain clarity? Like, for instance, this one project I'm working on is kind of an engineering problem. Um, so, like, imagine you have, this Cloudflare, right? And in the side navigation, you've got all these things you can click, but you need kind of specific permissions to access things on that page. And it's a big client rendered app. So you click like a nav button and the center pane like tries to load up a UI, but oh no, your user doesn't have specific permissions for this one thing. And so an error pops up that's, because some API call failed. How do you handle that situation? And at the outset, it seems like an engineering problem. Fix your API responses, uh, gate some things on permissions checks and things like that. But really, while you can do that stuff and we have that stuff in place, it's more about how you message it to the user.
Mhm.
And so management views this as an engineering problem because it looks like an error. But really, the problem is how do we communicate our permissions model to our users and effectively like direct them to the place where they need to go ask for it or buy the permission or whatever it is. Do you ever come across any problems that are like they're engineering problems, but not really? Like they're really UI problems or really product problems that are disguised as like engineering errors?
Yeah, I mean, the hard parts with that is a lot of the projects I've been working on, I'm there as a designer, not as the engineer, and
Yeah,
so I'm have a different seat at the table and how I'm driving those conversations or, like, how I'm working with the project manager, so I have been in situations where I guess an engineer thought it was an engineering problem and didn't bring in design, and then you end up with this, like, kudzu design system that's just kind of, like, grown in every which direction because they've tried to solve it. So, I think that's where just communication in general is great because I've worked with engineers before that have good design sense, and they'll say, "This is what I did," or, "This is what I want to do," and I can
sure.
either say, like, "Yes, here's my blessing," or like, "Man, let's kinda shift this around a little bit." Um, because, I mean, the reality of that is if they go too far down a rabbit hole in one direction, either it becomes harder to change on the back end or, like, really it is taken over like kudzu or crabgrass. It's like, "Oh, man, where do I where do I start in cleaning this up?"
Yeah. Yeah, and it kinda goes back to the, component library conversation we were having
Mhm.
where it was like, somebody has to be looking at this as a whole, right?
Yep. Yep.
There's the problem that we're solving isn't just this one error bar that needs to go away as if some code was causing a problem. It's like
Yep.
a larger thing we need to communicate, and somebody higher up the chain, product,
Yep.
essentially, has to come up with this.
Yeah, and I love what you said. Design systems definitely help in those situations, but there's also UX patterns that you have to take into consideration to make those things work. So it's like not just having the design system in this handoff of like, okay, you have all the assets you need. There's also another component of how it all fits together. So
Right.
I
How do
was
we message to our users that
yeah,
you don't have the rights to do this and here's where you can go get them? And that needs to
right.
be a pattern kind of globally applied to the UI.
Yeah, well, and some of that too is like bringing in a UX writer. I feel like that's one of the most underrated positions is having
Yes,
somebody come in and write all that stuff.
we have one, and, she was the one who organized all the routes in the side navigation, and the
Mhm.
amount of feedback that we got was unbelievable. Everybody had an opinion, and they were just
Mhm.
driving by and dropping messages in the Slack channel, and I don't know how her head didn't explode when she had
Yeah.
to, hear all that after working on this for months and months and months with, like,
Yeah.
leadership and product teams. So she's awesome, and she puts so much time and thought into it. And I think people need to just, like, try out a system before kinda getting sticker shock and being like,
Mhm.
"Why is this so different? And I have an
Yeah.
opinion," and just, like, use it and see.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. So, I know I keep bringing up this past experience, but I was at a fine-tech company, and so legal is very important in how you talk about things,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
that was the other piece with our UX writer was trying to make sure that the words that she used, she could use, and it's like, "Well, why don't you just say this?" "Well, I can't."
Right, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah,
when you have to
yeah.
run every word through
Yes,
legal.
yes, so crazy. So, oh man, these are like problems I just feel like tech Twitter has no idea.
Yeah, I'm more and more disconnected with it lately just
Yeah.
because I'm not, like, using Next.js to make a form and submit something to a
Mhm.
backend. Like, it's
Mhm.
such a different problem space.
Yep. Yep. Well, what's funny is I didn't put this on our agenda, so bear with me. We've kinda talked about this stuff before, but I had a friend that sent me the React Summit panel on
Yeah,
RSC. I believe the event was in Amsterdam over the summer, and they just
yeah.
released a video online, and was asking, "You've used RSCs. What do you think about all of this?" And one of the things that was really interesting was, I think is it Sasha? It's the guy that runs all of the,
Sasha Grey.
React yes, the React, surveys, the JavaScript surveys, all the things. He was like, "I do surveys. Let me survey the room. How many people are using RSCs in production?" And from what he said, it sounded like maybe 20% of the room raised their hand, and it was like, "Oof, like, React is telling us this is the future, and now nobody is using this. What is happening?"
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I think that that's not an accurate representation of the complete picture because exactly what you're talking about, it's like, yes, tech tech Twitter gets all of this hype about what's important and what's not important, but typically those are people also experimenting with greenfield projects or side projects that can do things. You have these huge big companies that have legacy systems that no, you can't bring RSC into the mix. Or, right now, Next is still one of the primary libraries or frameworks that is using RSC. And if you're not using that, how can you use RSC? So,
Parcel and Veet now both support it. So this is a
it's
big
so
deal.
good.
It's a big deal, yet I've heard nothing about it. Like, they dropped support, and then it was like, "Cool."
Now, let me ask this though. I haven't dug into it because even though I work full time on a framework, I don't actually write framework code. I teach people how to use it. I build on top of it. I do like marketing and education. When they have support for it, is that also with like HMR, SSR, all the things? Hot module
No
reloading, server
no
side
idea.
reloading, or is it
No
just
idea.
RSC? Okay. So to me, that's a big difference. So I went to the React Summit conference last year, and one of my favorite speakers got up on stage and was like, "Look, RSC is so easy." And he tried to show in 15 minutes how RSC could be implemented. And my team was sitting there like, "Are you kidding me? We've just spent the last 2 years trying to implement this." And this person went on stage and tried to show how you could do everything in 15 minutes, which was just like a gut punch to us because it's like we've been working on this for 2 years. It is not that easy. And even though, yes, implementing React Server components is easy-ish, there's so many more pieces that go into
The
making
rest of
that
it.
work with the framework, and that was totally overlooked in that talk. And
It's too
so
bad.
you miss all of that. And so that's why I'm asking because it's like, man, that'd be amazing if they make it that much easier. But also, like, are all these other considerations in place? Because that's the hard part. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily just the RSC, it's all the other things that you need in order to support it.
Yeah, and it's funny talking about the difference between, like, big company and a small new project. Like, our concern is getting off of class components so that we can support React Router v6. Like, it's very different.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of these older, bigger React apps are client rendered, like, just big honkin' React Router client rendered
Mhm.
applications, which is like a paved path to upgrade to React Router 7 and get all the remix features and stuff, but there's still a lot that needs to get done. You have to get rid of class components in order to
Yeah.
do that, and that's a big hump you gotta get over.
Yeah. Well, and there's, I'm gonna be honest, I don't totally understand all this, but there's also stuff with, like, ES modules and, like, Common JS and, like, all those things and how they work and compatibility that also makes some of those transitions difficult when you're talking about React server. I mean, some of that stuff I'm just like, if you'll solve the problem for me, then I'll teach people how to use it.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, man. Okay.
Um,
So,
yeah, I was
I'll
gonna
let
say,
you.
speaking of solving other people's problems, I've been volunteering for the PTO, the parent teacher
Mhm.
organization at the school lately, and I was appointed the CTO of the PTO, which I thought the title the title was hysterical.
Was there a CTO before? Or are you the first ever?
I think I'm the first ever. I mean, somebody's set up stuff before, but I got
Just
to
as
walk
long.
into, like, a very non-technical, uh, room of people and situation and just get to, like, kind of figure out what was going on and determine the needs for the future. Um, and it's not
Just
gonna
as
be as
long as
interest
Oh, sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say just as long as they don't start asking you printer questions.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost that bad, you know what I mean? Um, because some people might be technical and know how to do stuff, but most people aren't, and so this volunteering is not, like, as glamorous as you might think. I'm not building any websites. I am mostly just tearing down unmaintained and bad tech that they've set up
Yeah.
in the past, like old WooCommerce websites and WordPress websites that aren't being managed well, and I'm just, like, getting rid of it, saving, like, hundreds and or, like, thousands of dollars a year on all
Yeah.
this stuff, and I'm just like, "You need a link tree and some Google Docs." Um, and I gotta say, it feels better, it's way cheaper, and,
Yeah.
everybody knows how to edit it now, which is I think is the most important thing at the end of the day.
That's awesome. I went to have lunch with my kids on Friday, and I was sitting there waiting for them, and a couple other moms that are on, like, part of PTO were sitting next to me, and they were going on about the website. I was kind of eavesdropping a little bit, and
Yeah.
they were talking about trying to update everything, and they're like, "I just don't know, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, I could interject myself and be like, "You by the I could help," but then I was like, "I'm just gonna be quiet. I'm just gonna sit here and let them figure it out instead of trying to
Yeah.
figure out what mess that they're dealing with right now." But it sounded a lot of what you were talking about where they were
Yeah.
saying, "There's a lot of pages in here with old information. How do we get rid of those?" It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, and
good luck with that.
I'm just of the opinion that if everything can pretty much just be a Google Doc, I know it doesn't look nice, but everybody knows how to update it, and everybody knows what
Mhm.
a Google Doc is, and you have a link tree as your home website page, and you can link out to stuff. And then
Yeah.
nowadays, like, PayPal makes it easy to make donation pages or payment pages, or
Nice.
you've got Google Forms for event signups, and all of that is kind of what you need.
Yeah.
I host it out on Cloudflare now, and it's just like
Good.
add some, like, domain redirects, so now you have, like, the website.com slash some short links, and it's just it's so much simpler.
That's
But
awesome.
it is, like it's the ultimate form of nerd sniping when you hear, like, people talking about something, you're like, "Oh, I can help you fix that," and I have to stop myself from going down rabbit holes of, like, hold on, we need to do so much more," or, "I need to, like, get password management set up for everybody," or,
Mm.
like, administrative and user accounts, and I'm like, "No, no, no. This is fine. It's up to
Mhm.
them to do this, and it's just
Yeah.
my job to kind of, like, keep it on the rails, you know?"
Sure, sure. Although I do like the idea of them calling you about their printer.
I've been called about some funny stuff.
That's so funny. My son just started middle school, and so everything, of course, is in Google Classroom, but I feel like they're embracing that even more. And
Oh,
so,
cool.
from a school perspective or education perspective, it's kind of been interesting to watch him try and like do math homework and enter in these weird equations with with a WYSIWYG editor. I'm like, how do you write those math problems out? I mean, there's so much involved in tech that you might not necessarily see depending on what your context is or where your focus is.
I've never heard of this Google Classroom thing. That's pretty cool.
Oh, really? They run everything off of that, and what's interesting is all of his math homework right now, he'll come home with these printed worksheets of, "Okay, here's my problems," but then so he'll have to write out his work on the paper, but then he enters it into the Google Classroom thing. The frustrating part is as a math assignment, he has to get the formatting just right. So that was a little
Yeah.
annoying the other day. I mean, he's doing fractions right now, and so he's trying to enter in all that fraction information. But the cool part is he gets immediate feedback. So it's like, "Nope, that was the wrong answer. You get 3
Right.
tries." And from a teacher perspective, that's awesome because it's already graded when it comes in. So,
This reminds me of my
mhm.
physics homework back in high school. You know, you'd spend, like, a whole page working out at, like, some physics problem, and you'd put it in, it's like, "Wrong." It's like,
I
I have no idea where I went wrong.
know. Yes,
I'm just
yes.
gonna guess.
Yeah, well, and some of the things he was getting one of the problems he got wrong at one try was because the fraction wasn't reduced, and it was like, "Oh, yeah, it says in the directions right
Mm.
in the simplest form, so we've gotta reduce the fraction." It's stuff that I have forgotten. I take a calculator for granted, but he's having to divide fractions right now, so I was having to, like, pull up YouTube videos, like, "I don't remember how to do this by hand."
Yeah, I'm
So
looking forward to those days. I always thought math was kind of fun and stuff.
yeah, yeah, same.
Yeah.
But it does take, like, an hour. It's taken about an hour every day, so I'm like, "Okay." Okay, let's see. Let's talk about where do you wanna go?
Hey, the
AI?
topic's favorite yeah, the show's favorite topic, AI.
Mm,
Let's get back on AI.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, you know, 2 years ago, it was like, "Hey, AI, like, how do I use this? What are your best cases?" And now it's just a normal part of my everyday work. It's like, well, like, even
Okay, how, like, integrated is it into your daily flow? Because I've got this thing in my head that I'm calling the
Mhm,
AI curve, like, how much you're
mm,
using it. And
mhm,
I'm trying to figure out if the AI curve will be like a bell curve where you get super into it and then you realize, "No, whatever," or it's
mhm,
gonna continue to just really set itself into daily flows. So,
mhm.
like, how are you doing it day to day?
Yeah, so well, I'll tie it back to what we were just talking about. My son had to write a math problem, and I could not figure out how to write it, and I was like, "Well, let's just ask AI," and he's like, "No, no, 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 I'm not allowed to use AI." And I was like,
It's a
"Well,
learning
I
tool.
know I know you're not, but let me just ask. I'll look, don't look. I'll look and then I can help you." But, so I mean, that's kind of how integrated I am. That's why I bring it up is because that's the first thing that I reach for is like, let me ask AI on some of these things. And a
We
lot of
were
times
playing we were playing Farkle the other day, like a dice game,
oh,
and,
yeah.
like, we got into an edge case of, like, the rules, and we weren't sure. So I took a picture of the dice, just said, "Yo, we're playing Farkle, like, what's the deal here?" ChatGPT gave me an answer, like, amazing stuff at this point. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
better than Google, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, just the fact that it can summarize everything for you, where I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
having to read 5 websites and then parse that information myself. It can just give me a general summary. Or I've told you this for fall break, we're going to a dude ranch. And the reason we're going to a dude ranch is because my husband said, these are the types of vacations that we like, but we're looking to do something new. And ChatGPT said, you might like a dude ranch. So I'll let you know how it goes, but that's what we're doing. So it's pretty integrated, especially when you consider where we were, 2 years ago.
Right.
From a work context, the main thing that I'm using it for, I mean, the most obvious thing is really autocomplete. As I'm typing, writing code, it's like making suggestions. So it does feel like an advanced autocomplete. But and then from a design perspective, I'm not using it quite as much. I think, for me, a huge unlocking point was we had Ray Deck on the podcast probably almost 2 years ago where he was talking about like use AI to do the parts of work one that you don't like or just to speed up some of those mundane workflows. So for me, the design part is the part that I do like and generally I know what I'm going for and so trying to get a prompt to give me the result I'm looking for is often very frustrating. When I'm like I can do this faster. So it makes sense that AI is not as integrated in those parts as say it is for code, which is a little bit more objective.
Yeah.
But just this past week, I started getting into Taskmaster AI. Have you looked at this at all?
I have not, but I this is exactly where I wanted to go with this conversation
Okay.
because I was talking to Jordan about this,
Oh,
yesterday,
perfect.
who now works at an AI company and uses Taskmaster.
Yeah. So Taskmaster is an open source library. We can include a link in the show notes. But and Dan, I don't even know Dan's last name. I can include some of his YouTube videos. He's created some great content about how he uses Taskmaster in order to get the results that he's looking for. But basically what you do is you go create a PRD or a pro oh, why did the definition of a PRD? Just it's like so basic. Uh,
Product requirements
thank
document.
you, thank you. I was like, why did this just exit my mind? But you create a PRD, so product requirements document, and then you ask it. And like to create a PRD, you can ask AI to help you. So if you go to
Right.
Claude or ChatGPT, you can say, "This is generally what I'm trying to do with my project. Will you help me write a PRD?" And it the prompt that Dan provided is fantastic. It's like, this is the structure, write user stories. I mean, all the things that you would expect in an official PRD document. But then you can then take that to Claude Code and connect that to Taskmaster and say, here's my PRD. Will you work through it and generate all the tasks that I need? And what Taskmaster does is it breaks those down into different pieces the different steps that it has to go through in order to build that in code. And then you can say, okay, will you go through and just evaluate what are the hardest tasks? Will you break those down even more? And so then Taskmaster will go through and evaluate and say, oh, this one's really difficult. Let me break this down into like 10 more subtasks. And so then by the end of it, depending on how difficult that feature is, the one that I was working on had like 30 tasks total. But then you can just take Taskmaster and it's like even broken those down into phases. And you say, hey, based on all of the tasks that I have, look at the dependencies, look at the priorities, look at the difficulty. What task do you recommend that I do first? And it'll make recommendations. And then you can just basically walk it through and say, we do this one, we do this one. The cool
Yeah.
thing too about Claude Code, if you're using it with Claude Code, is that it also has sub agents. So depending on what task you're working on, you can actually have it run multiple workflows or, different AI pieces at one time instead of just having to work through it in a linear fashion. Sometimes it feels a little bit like you're babysitting, like, yep, it's good, good, keep going. Some of it does feel vibe codey because you're not necessarily reviewing the code that it puts out. But depending on the project, that may or may not be okay. But for me, at least, it helped give AI a direction. Like, these are all the steps that I have to do, and that's really what
Yeah.
AI needs. It doesn't need your entire project at once. It needs work on this, work on this, work on this.
Yeah, exactly. I've always said this, like, as if you can't just give it a ticket and then an entire code base and be like,
Yep.
"Go." Like, just like you couldn't do that to a developer, really,
Right.
like, especially if the code base is significantly large enough. I think that AI curve that I'm seeing is, like, you start with autocomplete,
Mhm.
and the top of the bell curve is, like, you literally have the PRD, it's breaking it all down into tasks. You actually have multiple, agents,
Yep.
some doing the coding and some doing the checking, and then one, like, being the PM, and they're all, like, working together
Mhm.
to get this done, and they're fanning things out.
Yep.
And that's, like, to me, is, like, peak AI at this point,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And that's kind of
Um,
at least where the rabbit holes that I'm going down right now is how do you get these sub agents to help build things? Like, there's a lot of
yeah,
stuff online right now where you probably heard Sam Altman say that one of the next $1 billion companies is going to be run by one person. But the thing is, you almost need like a team of sub agents with different focuses, just like you would
yeah,
have for a human team
yeah,
running all those tasks. And so trying to figure out, okay, how do you direct those? How do you figure out the handoffs there? And how do you let one person or one agent that's really good at one thing do that thing?
yeah. Yeah, so how has it worked out in practice for you? Like,
Yeah.
I'm on the point of the curve where I I can get it to solve well-defined problems. I don't
Mhm.
do the PRD stuff. I will say, "Hey, this test is failing. Can you go fix it?" Or, "Hey, I
Yep.
need to implement this function. Can you go do it?" Or, "Hey, I'm experiencing this issue. Go do it." Or it's good for conversations back and forth.
Mhm.
"I'm thinking about solving this problem in the code base. What do you think?" I'm not at the point where I'm doing PRDs or giving it tickets or telling it to go make a feature without, like,
Mhm.
direction. How
Yeah.
about you?
It depends on what it is. Um, So there's certain like NPM libraries that I've vibe coded that are amazing. It's like this
Mhm.
is the one feature that's very specific. It's a small library. So even if I step away from the project and come back, it doesn't take much for the AI to get the full context of the project back in its memory bank.
Right.
But there are other projects like the one that I was working on last week, trying to get Taskmaster to help me, I was fighting AI all week and it's still not solved. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I think I'm just going to have to start back over. And I'm not sure if it's because of the nature of the project and what I'm asking it to do. So I'll just kind of explain what it is a little bit. With uh, Redwood SDK, we have an integration for using content collections, which is really what Astro's using. And they're under the hood is their content collection setup is an open source library and it just
Yep.
integrates seamlessly. Like, I'm not even sure I realized that they were using a third party library for all that. One of the great things about Astro is they have MDX, Markdown X support, where you can include React components natively. Well, for me, I'm like, that's what I want. I want to move all of our documentation into a Redwood SDK project. But in order to do that, I need to be able to create custom components.
Mhm.
And so I need there to be MDX support. And right now we don't have that. And so the crazy thing is, because it's Redwood SDK, we have RSC support. There's hot module reloading, there's SSR, all the things that we were talking about at the top of the show, trying to pull that in. So a lot of times the integration that I've gotten back from AI is like, yeah, it's working great, but it's only client supported. I'm like, no, I also need there to be SSR support because this is documentation. I need that
Right.
SEO and to be there. You should just be able to deliver the component as is. And or like it'll say, okay, I've rendered this on the server, but I'm like, now it's not working on the client. I have no functionality. And AI has struggled to get that. And then the worst part is it'll say, oh, well, I got this to work now, and I will go and then look at the code. And what it did was it took my component, basically hard coded it in, and then passed it back and said, well, you got your server components all hard coded in. Like, that's not what I want. Or
Yeah.
it'll like manually list out, these are all the client components that you have. And I'm like, okay, great. But I don't want to have to list out client components every time in a configuration file. I should be able to dynamically import those. So then it starts doing like this weird dynamic import. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like,
Yep. Yep.
what are you doing?
Way off the rails. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it just, I keep going in circles about things where I'll say, that's not what I want. And then it'll do solution B. And I'm like, that's not what I want. So it goes back to solution A. I'm like, we just covered this.
Yes.
This is not what I
Yes.
want. So, I don't know if that's because, again, documentation around RSC, even from like a framework level, is non existent. If that's why there's a problem with that particular situation, or it's just, no, this is a more complex problem that really should be saved for a senior engineer, and our AI developers, quote, are still junior level. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure why why it's not working. But anyways, that was my fight last week.
I've had the exact same thing bouncing between 2 solutions, and you're
Mhm.
giving feedback that one's wrong, and it just if there's no clear solution, it never seems to give up and say, Sorry, this is not the way this should be working." I had a
Yeah.
situation where, um, we're looping over a big object of things, and we kinda needed to run a React hook in that loop, but you can't run hooks and loops, and I was trying to talk to AI about how can we kind of extract this to make this hook usable, and at the end of the day, the, ultimate solution was don't use a hook, use a function, and just pass in the stateful arguments that you need. But AI just wouldn't concede to that. It would
Yeah.
just do all these crazy things to try to get it to work.
Yeah.
I
Now
did have a teammate try to do like AI project planning uh, to see how it went,
mhm.
which was actually the project that I handed off right now. And so I was
Mhm.
like wading through all of these tickets. Like, they were all, like, the PRD and
Mm.
stuff were committed to the code base, and there's all these tickets out there, and AI did, like, a really good job of thinking through things, I feel like, but then it made all these tickets, and there's a ton of words, but, like, nothing concrete, no links to
Yeah.
code, no code examples, it's all just words, and it's like hand-waving theory, and I'm like, "Cool, how do I
Mhm.
implement this?" And I'm looking at these
Mhm.
tickets, and I'm like, "There's no starting point here, it's just talking around the problem space."
Yeah.
Um
Well, I
So
think
it's
I
like you need
told
a
you.
human to come in and try to, like, pinpoint, what is step
Yeah.
1? What is step 2? What does that mean for the code, you know?
Uh-huh. Well, I think I told you this in our, like, private group chat. Was I was working on this project I was talking about with MDX, and AI came back and said, "It's done." I've got all your core functionality built. I'm like, "Okay, great. I don't even know how to use it." So I said, "Will you write me a guide or,
Yeah,
an in-depth read me to explain how I can use this code because I need to test it." It wrote me 60,000 words. I was like, "What in the world?" Like, I'm gonna spend hours going through this, and I finally asked it. I was like, "Okay, will you write me a table of contents that tells me where to start?" Because it had written, like, 5 or 6 guides, and I was like, "I don't even know."
yeah,
Ugh. So, anyways,
yeah,
it's this thing that's, like, amazing sometimes. But the kind of and we were again talking about this in our private group. I think there's a middle ground that people aren't necessarily talking about because it's not maybe not as attractive. But I think it was you, Brad, that you were saying, I have this data set that I need to work through. AI is terrible about doing things that computers should be good at. But
yeah,
you can have AI write the script for you, and
yeah.
then it makes it faster to process, and you can reuse that multiple times. You don't have to ask AI to do that every single time. And so I think that's kind of maybe a gray area that people don't necessarily consider is how do these two things coexist where we can write scripts and have deterministic things happening, but then we also have AI that can use the tools that we're providing it.
Well, this is precisely MCP. Kind of. I
Mhm.
mean, the script
Yes.
was a
Yes.
one-off thing, but, like, we just described MCP of, like, how
Yep.
can AI produce deterministic results for, like, real actions we wanna take? That's MCP servers.
Yep.
But how can AI, like, solve dynamic problems and, like,
Yep.
modify a code base and things like that? That's what it is actually good at.
Did you listen to that syntax episode about MCP servers?
Yeah. I don't know which one, but yes, I'm caught up.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We can include a link in the show notes, but there was a recent episode where Wes and Scott talked through all the processes that Wes went through to create an MCP server, where it was like, I just want to be able to give it natural language. Like, I have
Oh, yeah.
$5 to spend today. How much can I spend over the course of the entire week? It's natural language, which is what AI is good at, but you're asking it to do math problems, what AI is not good at. And so, how do
Yeah.
you tie those two things together so that it can use a natural language, but then use script tools to be able to solve the problem?
It's hysterical, but, like, AI needs a calculator MCP tool to
Mhm.
do math, and I just like, that cracks me up. But it really does. It should flip a switch in your brain to realize AI is completely non-deterministic. It is kind of
Mhm.
taking the sum of all things that it's ever consumed and, like, somehow guiding that towards an answer that is non-deterministic. So,
Yeah. I think
save
one
compute for computers.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm interested to see how the future of AI plays out is either the models have to get faster in how we iterate on them, or there has to be a better I guess what I'm trying to say is there has to be a better way that we're training them, because a lot of times the feedback that I get from them, I feel like is feedback that's 1 or 2 years old. And so how do we train them on better, more in-depth, like, newer documentation? I think,
Right.
Tailwind 3, 4 is a prime example. It's getting to the point now where, yes, it will recommend Tailwind 4 solutions, but every once in a while, it's like, "Yeah, let me write you a tailwind.config.js file." I'm like, "No, everything should be in a CSS file now."
There, I know there is a tool for that. I can't remember the name.
Context
Has
7 is supposed to help
That's the
with some
one.
of that.
That's the
Yeah.
one. Where you
Where
go
you
get the documentation
Yep.
and it loads it into context.
It's like it
Um,
creates, I think, what, an NCP server for your documentation so that you can keep it up to date.
but to
Yeah.
me, that's half of the battle. I'm wondering how high are we gonna get on the AI curve realistically? Are we
Mhm.
going to get to the point where and I'm talking day-to-day work.
Yeah.
Are you and I going to be running multiple agents? A PM, a QA agent, a developer agent? And they talk to each other, and they handle stories, and write stories, and do this stuff, and you're guiding it throughout your day, and that is your day. Will we reach that pinnacle?
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, I think
It
some
is
people wanna get there, but I think realistically, we probably won't get to that point.
Well, here's the other part of that point, and I don't know if you've felt this or not, but a lot of times you are babysitting it. And it's like, "Enter,
Mhm.
enter, enter. Like that work is not as fun. It's harder to get in the flow. And if it's a larger task, sometimes I'll be like, enter, and then I'll go do something else. Oh, I missed it. Enter. Go
It's
do
like taking a
something else.
training course that you just click through. You're like, whatever, this
Yeah,
looks good.
I know. But like I'm like the workflow, the DX there has to get better too.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer
I
is.
don't know. I don't know, but I would love to hear what like the audience thinks too. Like, where are we on the AI curve, and are we going to reach the top? And if we do reach the top, are we just going to fall back down the other side of the belt curve? Is it a belt curve, or is it like a hockey stick, or like something
Yeah.
that increases?
TBD.
Yeah.
TBD. Okay, I'm gonna save. I mean, we're almost at time, so I'm gonna save some of the other things for next week. Do you want to do picks and plugs?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, we're going to move into the next segment of the show, which is our picks and plugs, where we pick something that we like and we plug something generally that we worked on. And last week we did not record, but I texted Brad and I was like, I have the best pick. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it because I'm so excited about it. So I got a new Boya microphone, and this is called the Magic microphone. And actually, they have a smaller version that almost looked like an iPod, not an iPod, AirPods Pro case where it has two
Whoa,
microphones and the receiver in it.
that's
But
small.
I know, right? And I'll share a link for it. But the reason that I got this one is because the case is basically like a boom mic or what it looks like. And you open it up and there's two lapel mics in it. So you can use it almost like an interview mic where you can put foam thing on top, walk around and talk into it. You can take that off. You can use it just like as a nice desktop microphone. So I've thought, if I'm trying to record a podcast on the road, this is perfect. Or if I'm trying to record something at an event, I have this like little lapel mic. And the nice thing about this lapel mic is it will clip, but there's also magnets included. So everything is just so nice and compact. Now, the cool thing about this boom mic stick is you can actually pull off the bottom, and it has a little plug that you just stick into your phone. Or mine came with another receiver that I can just plug into my camera. So I love how compact it is. I think that's one of the things that I've struggled with since I started podcasting is how do I podcast from the road without having to bring along all this gear. So I'm really excited to be able to use this. And the thing is, it's actually pretty affordable, especially when it comes to microphones. I think the company was originally kickstarted, but I think I still was able to get mine through Amazon. So they've already kind of moved through all the kickstart funding and are mass producing them. So anyways, pretty cool. If you go check out Boya, Boya.
The flexibility is awesome. How's the audio quality?
It sounds great.
Really?
And the big thing is, I mean, it's not as nice as say the Shure SM7B or whatever version microphone that I'm using now. But in terms of just like flexibility, the nice thing about it is it says that it's using AI. And I don't know how much of that is happening in the microphone, how much of it is happening in the software that you're using. But I can record something on that and then just say jump over to Premiere or CapCut or wherever I'm editing and enhance it. And it sounds good. So I think just for what it is, I'm okay with maybe compromising a little bit of the quality, especially if I'm on the go.
Sure.
I'm not sure I would record like tons and tons of podcasts with it, but for just, a one-off week where I'm on the road, it's perfect.
Yeah, form factor is amazing.
Mhm. And then I was debating about whether to talk because you can hear my clock in the back probably. For my plug, I'm going to go ahead and pick Build 12. So this is a project where I was trying to build 12 projects in 12 months. It's August and I'm embarrassingly behind, but I've had a breakthrough. I feel like this past week and just being able to crank out content, crank out content, but also crank out like products and work on stuff. So I'm excited to really get into sharing that and kind of realizing the vision that I had at the beginning of the year, being able to actually put that out into the world. So go check out build12.com if you want updates or want to see some of the stuff that I've been working on. But I'm emceeing and speaking at SquiggleConf next month. And so I'll be talking about one of the projects that I've been working on recently. So that'll be fun.
Nice. That's awesome. That's in Boston, right?
That's right.
I've
Yeah.
never been to
So
Boston.
I haven't either. I was trying to think. No, I haven't either. So I'm excited to go. Yeah. So SquiggleConf is all about tooling. You should go check out their website. And so I've been working on tools to make these projects go faster. So, kind of taking a note out of Brad's playbook because you are trying to create a starter template that would allow you to build all the things better. And so I've kind of realized if I want to have any kind of velocity, you can't reinvent the wheel every single time unless you just have tons of time.
Yeah, I feel like any of those starter applications I was trying to build, I should just like feed into AI and be like, make me this every time, or just like give it a
Yeah.
link to the GitHub and be like, update this
Yeah.
and make a new one, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
But let's
Cool. So
see.
what picks and plugs do you have?
My pick is probably 20 years too late, but um I've been watching all the Harry Potter movies because we're going to
Yeah.
Universal Studios in a couple
Yes.
weeks. I've watched 1, 2, and I'm like most of the way through Harry Potter 3, which is The Prisoner of Azkaban. They keep getting better, and I'm very
Yes.
surprised at how much I like them, actually. It started kinda kiddish,
Yes.
but, like, the world has kind of, like, continued to evolve. Like, you visit the same places, the
Yeah.
characters get older, they encounter different problems, but, like, the storyline is very continuous, and so to me, that's great. That's kinda why I liked Star Wars too, is because like, you're
Yeah.
just so familiar with everything. It was just cool to kinda see another installation of the movie carry that forward.
Now, are
Um,
your kids watching it with you?
they watched the first one.
Okay.
It's kinda, like, scary towards the end,
Yeah.
and they've got some scary stuff in there, so we're kind of, like, slowing down.
Yeah.
I feel like 2 is even a little bit scarier than 1, and
Yeah.
I even thought 3 had some scary parts in it too for them,
Yeah.
so it's like, it's hard to kinda show them everything. They're
Sure.
super into it already, like, the
Yeah.
wands, the magic. My daughter's acting like Hermione Granger, which is hysterical, and they're talking British sometimes, it's kinda funny.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, my kids, we only had the intention, kind of what you're talking about, of showing them episode 1, and they quickly
Mhm.
got into it, and by the end, it does get pretty dark, but
Yeah,
they just kept begging for more, and we're like, "Well, I mean, if you're not having bad dreams about it, if it's not scaring you, we'll just see how far," and they actually
right.
made it through all of them. What's funny is there is one scene. Are you familiar with the whole I don't wanna spoil it. There's one scene that's really dark where you have, like, dead people and spirits, like, swimming around, which is crazy, and
Not yet.
so
Probably
we
the
were
weirdest thing I've seen was the Dementors from
yeah,
Azkaban, the
yeah.
ghost things.
Yep, and so we were watching it, and we told, like, my daughter Adele, I don't remember how old she was at the time, we were like, "Close your eyes. Don't watch this, we'll tell you when it's over." And so the scene finished, and she laughed. She goes, "Ha, I saw the whole thing." So she was, like, watching it through her hands, but she
Yeah,
wasn't scared at all, and we're like, "Okay, if you're kind of laughing about this and enjoying it, I
sure.
think you'll be okay." So but, I understand just trying to balance that, and every kid is gonna be different.
Yeah. Yeah, so everybody's excited to go to Universal, and, I've got a lot of movies to watch before, September 7th. And I wanna
Yay.
do Fantastic Beasts because some of the areas in Universal are
Yeah.
Fantastic Beasts, so I didn't even know that was a thing, I gotta watch that too, so there's
Uh-huh.
a lot I gotta watch.
Lot of work to do.
Yeah. Um, and then I guess my plug, Cloudflare. Just do Cloudflare
Yeah.
stuff, cloudflare.com, and, tell me what you hate about this side navigation, like the old side nav, because the new one's coming soon, and we'll make sure we, uh,
I can't
you
wait.
know, take your requests. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I should show you a preview, Amy.
Yes,
I totally
please.
can. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. If you are listening after the fact in your podcatcher of choice, please leave a rating and review. It helps other people find the show, helps us get great guests, which we do have a few coming up, and sponsors. But until then, that's all we got.
See y'all.
I'm going to go ahead and end it because we're a little long today. But thanks, everybody.